Good morning, friends. As I spoke yesterday on the syllabus of cryptograms, and we were focusing on the each and every unit. Of that, we have selected the viruses to speak in today's videos or lectures. Friends, we all are aware of viruses due to this coronavirus. Before this, we all also know regarding the various diseases causing by the viruses. Viruses cause diseases to the plants, to the animals, and to bacteria, which is also known as bacteriophages. Whereas viruses causing disease to the plant are known as plant viruses. The viruses causing disease to animal are known as animal viruses, and the last one, that is viruses also inserts or cause disease to the bacteria which survive on the bacteria are called as bacteriophages. There are many more diseases causing by the viruses. Most of the common and generally known by the society, the diseases are HIV virus, that is AIDS virus. We are also aware about the rabies, the disease of rabies, which is also caused by the viruses. Before entering in the topic or touching this aspect, we like to have to know the history of the viruses. What it is, no one exactly say when the virus has occurred, since virus do not leave historical footprints or such as fossils like animals and plants. Viruses are acellular parasitic entities that are not classified within the kingdom. Viruses are thought to be a mosaic, bits and piece of nucleic acid. They exist in the netherworld between a living organism and a non-living entity. Living things that grows, metabolize and reproduce, whereas viruses replicate but they do not grow, metabolize, and mainly the viruses are obligate organism. How these viruses or virus or viron were discovered and detected? It was first discovered after the development of Porcelain filter, which is called as Chamberlain Pasteur filter. This filter was used to remove the visible bacteria under the microscope from the liquid sample. But in 1886, Adolf Meyer, the scientist, named as Adolf Meyer demonstrated that disease of tobacco plants that we called it as TMV, tobacco mosaic virus, could be transferred from a diseased plant to a healthy one via liquid plant extract. Virus and virons. These single virus particles are very small, which is measured about 20 to 250 nanometers in case of tobacco mosaic virus. These are the infectious entities, infectious organism from a virus. This virus or these infectious organisms being a obligate mode of life survive only in the living organism and which enters the host cell. This virus has a capacity of mutation in the host cell. The surface structure of the virons can be observed by both scanning and transmission electron microscopy, whereas the internal structure of the virus can only be observed in images from a transmission electron microscope. This technology has allowed for the discovery of many viruses of all types of living organisms. Initially grouped by shared morphology, latter group of viruses were classified by nucleic acid, by the contained DNA or RNA, whether nucleic acid was single or double stranded. More recently, there are molecular analysis of viral replicative cycle, evolution of viruses. Although most of the scientists and biologists have accumulated a significant knowledge about how present day viruses have evolved, much less is known, but how viruses originated in the first place. When explored the evolutionary history of most organisms, scientists can look at fossils record and similar historical evidence. However, viruses hypothesize about evolutionary history of investigation how these viruses has occurred. There are three hypotheses regarding this. The one is regressive hypothesis, the second one is progressive hypothesis, and the third one is self-replication hypothesis. While talking about the regressive hypothesis, it explains origin of viruses by suggesting the viruses evolved from free living cells. Many components of this process might have occurred as a mystery, followed by progressive hypothesis. In this hypothesis, RNA or DNA genome and suggests that viruses originated from RNA and DNA molecules which exist from a host cell. The last one, that is self-replicating hypothesis. This hypothesis persists a system of self-replication similar to that of other self-replicating molecules. These three hypotheses were made regarding the virus evolution or virus origination. Friends, we know the virus term has been came from the Latin words. What is meant by virus? Virus means that poison or venom. As earlier I spoke, in 1886, Adolf Meyer observed this virus in the tobacco plant, that is TMV, tobacco mosaic virus. It is an ultrascopic organism which is infectious agent which metabolically inherit and multiply only within the living things. This virus can be classified into the shapes and according to the host causing the diseases. The general characters of these viruses, I spoke about the metabolically inherent. When this virus infects the host, might be animal, might be plant, it interferes with the host cells and active in the host cell with its genome, such as DNA or RNA. This is the obligate parasites, intracellular obligate parasites. Obligate means the organism which survive on the living host, on the other life. Viruses cannot make their energy or food as like plants. They are completely dependent on a host cell. Viruses multiply inside the living cells using host cells machinery or host cells things. While observing the virus, viruses may observe in the different strains. The genetic material of the virus has itself, its of own. It may be DNA or it may be RNA in single stranded or double stranded mode. Virus has the ability to mutate or can undergo in the mutation. The viruses can only be destroyed with the help of the ultraviolet rays. Now, there is a quite confusion or a question regarding whether the virus is living or whether the virus is non-living. Actually, it lies between this living and non-living. Why? Because they lack a cellular structure. They do not respirate like plants and animals. Viruses cannot move on their self. Viruses don't have ability to grow. They can be crystallized and stored in the form of liquid in the bottles. What is the habitat of these viruses? Where these viruses occur? What is the habit of these viruses? They are unable to survive without a host cell. Means the habitat of these viruses are only the living organism. When they inherit in the living organism, then they become in the active mode in the host body or in the host cell. They are present either in the plant cell, next to that in the animal cell, or in the bacterial cell. Those are nano organisms, much smaller than the bacteria in the size. Viruses are much smaller when we see about the size or when we compare the size of the bacteria and viruses, we come to know that these are very small and entity regarding the viruses. Now the size vary of the viruses from 20 to 1400 nanometer, whereas of all the viruses, we see the polio viruses of very small size, that is 30 nanometer. Now there are various different kind of viruses as we are aware of these viruses. Ebola virus, vaccination virus, tobacco mosaic virus, bacteriophage virus, AIDS virus, rabies virus, polio virus, adenovirus, and so on. If we focus on only the size of the viruses, we come to know the adenovirus is having only the 90 nanometer in size, whereas poliovirus is 330 nanometer in size, but vaccinia virus are 300 nanometer in size. Regarding TMV virus, that is tobacco mosaic virus, we find 250 nanometer in the size. So this was regarding the sizes of the virus, which is measured in the nanometer. There are different shapes of viruses. If we talk about the shapes of viruses, we see rod shapes, bullet shapes, filament shapes, isohedral and tadpole shape in the viruses. Now, these different viruses, these different shapes viruses occur various different types of diseases in the living organism. So, friends, today we have seen regarding the virus and the virons, the history of the virus, structure of the virus, shapes of the virus, and the size of the viruses. We all know that the viruses are very small entity which cannot be seen by our naked eyes. These viruses are seen under the transmitted electron microscope. So, for detailed study of the cell structure of these viruses, we need the picture of the electron scope. Thank you.